The weekly way. Oh, I can't spend the nose. The weekly way. Oh, can't tell me home. The weekly way. Did you see it? The weekly way.
I had a deep fever dream today that I had all the wrong shit. So like,
That's a nightmare.
Yeah, no button-up shirt, wrong shoes, no belt. And in my nightmare, there was a gift shop underneath the church. So I went
I hope that's not a premonition.
dude, I know, I'm going out today to buy that shit. I got 17 days to what?
You have a big wedding?
Yeah, 200 person.
Do you have a band?
It's going to be my band. That's what I'm going to do.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I told the guys, I was like, I don't want you playing the whole night. Let's do an hour and a half, burning hot set, and then we'll have the DJ come up so you can enjoy themselves.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, well, it worked out well.
Are you paying yourself?
I'm not paying anybody. No, I'm
kidding.
I'm hooking the guys up with some cash for it, but thankfully everyone had some mercy on me. I didn't have to pay standard wedding prices.
That's
but
good.
Sean McGary, what's going on, brother?
What's up, brother? Good to see you, man.
Thanks for making the time, my
Hey,
man.
this is a pleasure for me, man.
Yeah. Well, it's been quite a while since we last spoke, and I feel like the last projects we did were all remote. It was just our jams during the pandemic, which were a lot of fun.
It was fun.
Yeah. Are you still doing much home recording these days?
No. Nope.
It's moved just to mainly the live stuff in addition to how many clinics has the Music Salon put on this year?
Technically 3, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting thing for a music school to offer because it seems like such a pain to put a clinic on to that capacity where it's opened up to folks that aren't just students and you're trying to find out what's not general knowledge you can find on YouTube that you need players in front of you to really get the point across with.
Yeah. Well. To add to that, so when I grew up, I'm obviously a bit older, and when I grew up, it was when guitar players, there was a lot of guitar heroes. I grew up in the '80s, so there was, your Paul Gilberts, your Malmsteens, your Vinnie Moore, fill in the blank. There was a lot of guitar clinics, so like any given music store any given week would have somebody in, it's like some just monster guitar player, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, and it was awesome. Like as a kid, as a young player, you could go see these heroes live and in person. I think that's a dying art, at least around here. It's non-existent. So one of the things I really wanted to do was, and not intentionally either, was to make this a reality. And if you don't mind me answering this, it's a little bit long story. So the reason this initially happened was by accident. So one of my absolute favorite guitar players is a guy named Guthrie Trapp in Nashville.
Bad dude.
He's a bad man, yeah. So we become friends, and he did my first clinic. But so the reason this all came about is I wanted to go see him play in Nashville. I've been watching him on YouTube forever. So we picked a Monday night. My girlfriend and I were going to go up, and I'm like, maybe I could just take a lesson off this guy. So I reached out to him, and I got to go to his house, and it was almost it was fanboy. Like here I am in the place where I've watched thousands of hours of videos. So took did the online, or not the online, the in-person lesson, and then I went and saw the gig. And I driving home, like, man, it'd be cool for some of my friends to experience what I just got to experience. This guy's so good and so knowledgeable, and so I thought I would love to get him down here just as get my friends together as a clinic. So we did a very intimate thing, like at a friend's house. It was sponsored by the Music Salon, but my buddy's got like this cool estate in Indian Hill, and it was like 12 guys, and it was very exclusive. And it was a whole weekend with Guthrie. It was catered. We spent 2 full days, lessons. We had a bagpipe player. I mean, it was cool.
That's awesome.
It was over the top. And then that Saturday night, we went and did a live performance at Fretboard, so people got to get up and jam with him. Buddy of mine, Mike Zimmerman, played with Kenny Rogers before he passed away and got him down. So it was basically kind of a rock and roll fantasy camp down here. Yeah.
Now, and things like the rock and roll fantasy camp have kind of opened people's minds up to you don't need to be in a certain age group to be a student again of that. And I feel like that kind of clinic also very much opens people up to those things. So when did you start the Music Salon, and what was it like to try to reinvigorate this thing you grew up with that you found special in clinics?
Yeah, so I've always the Music Salon's been around about a decade, and I've always taught. I taught for Buddy Rogers for years, and of course they eventually went out of business. But I'd parted ways with them before that, and then I tried teaching on my own. Did going to people's houses and just whatever. People come to my house, and it's just kind of a drag. So I really want to start my own place. And a lot of guys do. They just don't do it. It's taking that next leap of faith is it's hard, and it's a lot of work.
To have a brick and mortar space, to line up the students, to do all the accounting that comes along with that kind of thing.
It's crazy, yeah. So I just figured I'd start the music salon, and a buddy of mine, Jimmy King, helped me actually come up with the name. One of my good buddies. And my first location was in Bellevue, Kentucky. Don't ask me why. Or no, Dayton, Kentucky.
No, okay, cool.
Yeah, because it was kind of up and coming. It was a great spot, but it was Dayton, Kentucky.
Yeah, flood warnings all the time.
Yeah, just off the beaten path. So it didn't work out. So then I ended up in Silverton at the Bach Center, which is kind of right near Plainfield. It's right in the heart of, it's a cool location, but it was, again, a little off the beaten path. Mm-hmm. And then my dear friend John Stancorb, who I just had coffee with this morning, he's in town for a show he's doing this week with the Signs of Light Band.
Cool.
Yeah, great guitar player. He had a place in where I was over in Madeira.
Gotcha.
In Camargo, and I'd see him all the time at the gym, and we kind of reconnected. And he's like, "Man, why don't you come teach for me?" And I was like, "I'm kind of doing my own thing and trying to build my repertoire of students and my roster." So one day he's like, "Man, I'm moving to Dallas to try and do my own thing. Do you want to take over?" And I was like, "Yes." So by the grace of God, I got into this spot.
Yeah.
The rent was cheap enough, and it's in Madeira. I mean, it's the best location in my mind in Cincinnati, one of the best.
Yeah, well, you have to be available for people, and I think there's something about having the school there and having such a great residential neighborhood where people put a lot of effort into trying to end up in the right place to raise their family.
Location.
Exactly, and convenience is the name of the game.
Yeah.
And also, if you're going to be taking on someone else's practice, if you're going to be taking on their students and whatnot, you need to hand that to a person that the parents feel comfortable,
right.
The students feel comfortable, the music feels cohesive, and the education feels congruent to what you were doing in that.
Yeah.
What was it like to transition from individual's teacher to business owner in that regard?
It's definitely it's a different thing. So again, to kind of finish out the story, not to be too long-winded here, but
please, no, we got time.
My first version of the music salon, it was just me, myself, and I. So it was cool. I built my roster up eventually to about 60, 70 students a week, and it was just me. And it's a cool spot.
Yeah.
And there's a waiting room, and in my studio upstairs, and it was great. And I always wanted to do something bigger. I wanted to do a music school. It's kind of been my dream, and I was forced to do it. So eventually, the building I'm at, I knew was for sale, and then my landlord had told me, "Hey, don't tell anybody, but this building might be sold," which it still hasn't. So I freaked out. I'm like, "I'm done. I'm going out of business. What am I going to do? Where am I going to work? What am I going to do for a living?" So I just started looking around, and it was again kind of a long story. I was just driving up and through Madeira, and I saw this lady outside one day, and I said, "Hey, do you know if there's any buildings around here for rent?" And she told me about this space around back, and so I found this great location. It was a gym, and it was for lease. So I made the leap of faith, and I put a lot of money into it, got some contractors in, we built it out. We built studio rooms, a stage, renting instruments, and here I am. I started off 6 months ago with just myself, and I think I just hired my 8th teacher.
That's incredible.
I know, it's crazy. I have a guitar repair shop in there, and then we're doing clinics, like we just talked about. I'm doing band and instrument rentals. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's a bit overwhelming because it's so much work. If people think it's so easy to run a business, and people have no idea what it takes. None, unless you do it.
Well, people also assume you as the business owner are making all this money. It's like that's the most unpaid individual on the staff. Everyone else walks out the door the moment that the money doesn't make sense to them.
Right.
Versus you have sweat equity that may not financially amount to what it should. Yeah. But you remember that on the bad days, and sometimes you're the one that goes without being fed for those kind of things.
Exactly, yeah. That's just how it goes, man. That's business. That's life, right?
It is. But, I think it's so hard to employ musicians in particular, especially when you're talking about folks that I think the pros in our world tend to come into teaching when they need it, and they leave teaching when they don't.
Right.
So it's really hard to keep these students on a congruent path. If you want to start in the 2nd grade and go through your senior year of high school, it's pretty hard to keep them with the same teacher and keep them pushed and motivated to do so.
It's great. Yeah, it's so true. It's hard to do.
Yeah. Do you have many students that have gone through those formative years at your school, or is it? And what's the hardest part about keeping students for that amount of time?
So, I get asked that a lot. I try and be more than a teacher. I try and be a mentor because I think it's important, especially nowadays. Everybody's on computers and phones, and I find that a lot of kids don't have a ton of friends. Not everybody, but I think today, now more than ever, I think kids are more loners, because they're spending so much time, games and whatever. So I try and be a mentor and a friend. I don't ever discourage anybody. I try and encourage. Just not my job is to go, no, that's wrong. It's like you try and build people up.
Yeah.
And I have students that come in and just don't practice, and for whatever reason, they like coming to me, and they're kids, and they've been coming for several years. They're getting older now. They don't practice much, and there's only so much I can do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not anybody's parent, and I want to be, like I said, not to be broken record, but a mentor.
Yeah.
Well, I've had that in my life, and it's important.
Yeah,
and I think older people, adults, you can look up to,
and folks of strong character that are willing to lend their time to the formative youth. It's like not many people have the capacity or the patience for that. Not many people would wait and watch a kid not take the lessons to heart and come back and give them something from it. You know, life is a give and take, and you want to see your students grow, or else you start to feel like you're looking at a dead end here.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard things that, you know, because of the age of the internet and our devices, people went from having what would be considered 10 close friends to maybe 3 close friends.
That's a crazy stat.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily easy to quantify. It's hard to prove that kind of thing. But we all remember high school days where you needed your hobby to be the reflection of yourself that felt motivating. Because there's so many things to put you down, whether it's issues with your grades or issues in your social circle.
Right.
Social circle. But you and I probably both went to the instrument at points in time where you needed a confidant and a friend.
Yeah.
And it was a place to challenge yourself and to emote through. And that's not something you find by just taking the lessons and going home and leaving it there. You find it when you need it, you know?
You need it, right.
It's
so true. It is. I mean, it's so true.
Yeah, it's similar to a faith journey where you don't know that you need this until it's really crucial, and then you need to start building that kind of a thing up.
Yeah.
As you've had these students that look at you as a mentor and whatnot, what are some of the biggest piece of advice you give for any instrument, for just starting to find yourself as a musician, for claiming that part of you?
I mean, well, I mean, there's a lot of cliches, but for me, it's like, if you're not having fun, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to have a passion for it. And if you everybody's got different goals. Some, you know, guys like yourself are professional musicians, and, you know, myself included in that. Some people just want to have fun. Some people just want it as an activity. But my thing is, like, it's kind of like anything in life. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. You know, and one of the things I tell my students is, like, if they come in, they didn't practice, I was like, doesn't hurt me. I already know how to play. You know, it's hurting you. I mean, I want you to practice. I want to encourage you, but if you don't put the effort into it, it's not hurting me. It's hurting you. You know, if you want to get better at it, and anything in life takes hard work. And so me, it's like it's a lesson for everything in life. Like, the harder you work and the more you put into it, the more rewards you'll see. And I try, you know, and I ask people too. It's like, how many of your friends, even adults, like I have a lot of adult students, and I say, okay, out of your circle of friends, how many can play guitar? Maybe 1 or 2. It's tough, sometimes none. So I'm like, you're already doing something more than your average friend does.
Yeah.
So you're already ahead of the curve on that.
And the motivation of seeing people in your friend group start to pick up something new, especially at an older age. Like, I can't imagine how difficult it'd be to get an instrument like guitar under your hands, because the body's a little more calcified to those things. The brain's a little less malleable. Well, I'm trying to learn how to play a little bit more drums in my life, to play a little more keys. It's like the resistance that your body feels at any age above 20 starts to be way more real than you would ever expect.
Buddy.
Oh, dude, I'm scared. Trust me. That's what I'm trying to learn now. It's like, the window is always kind of dwindling.
It is. And adults, kids pick up, as you know, so quick. They're adapt to so many things. Adults are not more difficult, but they just don't pick up as quickly. I mean, I'm the same way. Any new skill I learn in life, it takes you twice as long, or 10 times as long as when you're younger.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, our brains are just too crowded with other things going on. So kids just are a sponge. They pick up a lot of things quickly and are so observant, whereas adults are, myself included, just kind of a little slower at things.
And there's something, too, about being around folks that keep having the aha moment. Like, when you're watching your friends kind of break through a glass ceiling of their skill set, whether it's the kids on the basketball team or a kid that's taking Taekwondo. When your friends are making larger leaps, you feel the motivation to sit down and try to get more out of what you do.
Yep.
And there's so many adults that have succumbed to, this is me, this is what I do, and now I just watch the clock tick down. And as someone that continually sits in front of students and tries to encourage betterment, I'm sure there's many ways that has affected you and pushing you into new hobbies and skill sets and whatnot.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy how that works.
So where have you gone for your personal time and your personal escape from music? Because it is your full-time job, in the same way that, like, I need some space from it sometimes too.
So I'll answer that. And this is kind of, people ask me a lot. I don't listen to music. So being a musician where I'm at, it's a blessing and a curse. And I hate to say this, and when I say it out loud, I kind of shudder, but I just don't have the passion for music that I used to. I just don't. And that sounds crazy. I have the passion to help others and do things, but and I learn every day. So I know this is a long answer. I'm still a student. So every morning I get up, I spend 2, 3, 4 hours practicing, learning on YouTube, practicing things, and then going to work and playing and come home doing it again. So I live, breathe the music. I'm in 3 bands. I'm constantly learning cover songs. I don't have the creative outlet anymore. I don't have originals like I used to. I'm not an original band. Mm-hmm. I don't have time to do it. It's work. It's my job, and it's my life, which I'm so blessed to do it because I wouldn't want to do anything else. But when all's said and done, I don't want to go out, and see bands that often. I've been to a concert in a year. It's like, I love it. Like, I'm going to go see a friend's band this weekend. I don't go to these open jams and stuff. People are like, why don't you go out? It's like, man, I just taught 10 hours. Last thing I want to do is go play guitar.
Yeah.
So for me, when I drive home from a gig, it's talk radio, old man radio, sports radio, NFL stuff, or Howard Stern.
Which is the greatest to do it, Like, I'm a big fan of Rogan and what that show's done.
Yeah.
But that all stems from what Howard has done.
Exactly, yeah. So my point is, it has nothing to do with music, my hobbies, even though I love playing. So to get to your answer, I'm a motorcycle guy in the past several years.
Yeah.
I love it. It's been the most amazing thing in the world. I get on a bike, and it's my only escape. You concentrate so hard, and I get so many ideas. I just think, and I'm alone or sometimes with my girlfriend on the back, but when we go on trips, and it's the most amazing. Unless you're a rider, you can't describe it.
Yeah.
And we go out in the country. I don't do city riding. I'm safe. I wear a helmet. But, yeah, it's dangerous. But what isn't dangerous nowadays, right?
For sure. My fiance is a nurse, so she's made it very clear that I'm never going to get my opportunity to be a motorcyclist. But it seems like a very different type of hobby where when you're driving your car, you see the wheel, you see your dashboard, you see your hood. Yeah. When you're on the bike, it seems like you pretty much just see the road in front of you, and you lean with every curve, and you have such a connection to the road that you're on. It seems very spiritual.
It is. Like, we go out to Adams County and Pike County and Brown County, and it's crazy. The roads you've driven before in a car, you see it completely differently when you're on a motorcycle. It's just the smells and the sights. It's, we recently got back from upstate New York, and that whole area, and it's just crazy. Just the whole vibe. We went over to Maine, or not Maine, but we rode all over. Went to Lake Placid, and just like the whole sights and smells. You can't explain it. Like in the car, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and
Vermont. Sorry, I was trying to think of the state.
Do you listen to music at all on the bike, or silence?
Hit or miss. I've got a nice little stereo, and I go through my summer jams. I listen to some things I like. I get into these little phases. So I do for a while, and then I'll turn it off. So I'd listen to music sometimes. I get in, like when the Chili Peppers album came out, I'm a huge fan. I wore that out. And I get into stuff every now and then. But I'm more like listening to guitar players and watching their videos. I go down that rabbit hole every single night of my life, you know. So I still love listening to guitar players and stuff. It's just like, listen to music. I'm not going to get in my car and listen to Led Zeppelin on the way after a gig, Mm-hmm. Just not going to happen.
Because there's been enough time of delving into that in such a attentive kind of manner that just doesn't serve you anymore.
Doesn't serve me anymore.
Yeah.
Unless the mood hits. Now, sometimes it does, but... like I said, it's a blessing and curse being a full-time musician, especially in my line of work. Now, maybe if I was just doing all originals, and it'd be a whole different thing if I wasn't teaching and playing cover bands, but my life is just other people's music. And people say, well, why don't you write? I do every day. I mean, I write little melodies and stuff, but and I'm going to put out an album this year, another solo record, but just for myself, it's just for my enjoyment.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to invest through the lens of original work and be able to quantify doing it as success, because it is such a metrics-driven game. Like, it used to be different, and we still have an opportunity for it to be reminiscent of what it was. But if you made a record and printed 100 CDs and you sold those 100 CDs, you're really doing it.
Yeah.
Versus now, if you put it up online and it doesn't hit 1,000 streams, they don't even tell you about it.
I know.
And
it's crazy.
1,000 plays in someone else's life is a hard thing to get to. it's hard for people to make space for you in their life like that because there's so much great music out there.
True.
And for the folks that aren't full timers like you and I are, their lens is just shaped with what they enjoy. And how often do you try a new food to find out if you like it? It's like, no, you go to the things that you love.
I know.
Because there's enough.
That's a good analogy. It really is. It's well, I mean, let me ask you. I mean, you're as a full-time musician who's doing originals and obviously the cover thing. I mean, I know where you're making most of your money, I would assume, from playing your solo gigs and things like that. But you're doing the original thing and you're getting in the van and you're doing these tours. Are you I don't mean to get personal, but are you monetizing that for enough to keep it going, or is it more just like it's going to happen someday for me? I'm going to make it to that next level.
Yeah, I'm very determined that that will be my bread and butter one day. Like when I think about my heroes, I think about Bruce Springsteen and Paul McCartney, where their catalog
good heroes.
Their catalog is the retirement, and it's like the primary investment is to write songs that are long lasting enough that one day it will pay for you to be able to have your freedoms in that.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that because I've stayed in the same market for most of my life, I've proven that I can do the covers well enough that people give me a 4-hour slot to entertain their patrons, and I go in there and I do 50% of my stuff.
Yeah.
And I compete with the hits that I'm asked to play every single day because that's the game I want to be involved in.
Right.
So thankfully, I've proven myself enough to be competitive on my own gigs with that material.
Yeah.
But if I went and just sold myself as an original artist to someone, I couldn't get the same dollar as saying, here's what I can play. I'm not saying this is what I'm going to play. And there's an odd line to walk there. But finding out that I have that freedom in the last 3 years of my life has been huge.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, because people won't tell you, oh, I love your song here. I love what I heard on this record. Like, people don't have the space in their life, again, to make you one of their favorite artists. But if they're sitting at one of your gigs and they clap for the Ed Sheeran, and then you come in and you break your heart playing something that you wrote, and they clap the same, you're in the ballpark.
It's a pretty awesome feeling, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And let me interject. Like, your music, it's pretty damn user-friendly. You know what I mean? I see a lot of people, and God love them, but they're trying to throw the originals in with covers, and it's like, man, it's you're mixing two different things here. These flavors aren't working well together. But like your stuff is, I don't want to categorize it, and I won't even try. But like it's very user friendly. It's very happy. It's good sounding music. I mean, it sounds like it would be a hit you would have already heard on the radio.
And that's such a kind way to put it because you want. There's many levels of consuming music. There's what you and I do, which is I like the song, I like the part, I like the artist, I learned the song, I learned how to feel the part. Now I'm trying to replay what I really know this to be, which is someone's heart and soul through this particular bend. And it's that bend right there that needs to have something special in it. Most folks are just consuming at the top level of, do I like that?
Right.
So it's enough to say, okay, I can squeeze these in here and no one's noticing. And then you start to say, I can squeeze these in here and someone's liking it.
Yeah.
And now I can say, I'm squeezing these in here and people tell me, quit playing the covers. I want to hear you do your thing tonight.
Man, in this part of the country, and it's been Cincinnati just from my experience, it's such a cover-based town. Because I've done both. I mean, most of my life I was growing up just doing original stuff. And I've done the whole thing of getting in a van and tour, and it was great. But after a while, it's like you're just spinning your wheels. It's like, man, sometimes you just want to make money, and you just realize your dream may not happen. That's okay, too.
Yeah.
We all have different goals. But it's just so funny because some people come up and go, do you guys do any originals? But it's far and few between. Most people are like, they don't even want to hear covers you're playing because they're not the covers they want to hear. It's just, people are just weird, man. You know, it's like, you can't please everybody and just do your instinct, right?
Yeah. And with the change of Spotify and things like that, the other day, for some reason, I didn't plug my phone in and put on what I wanted. And I was listening to EBN, and it was something I didn't like, and it was something I did like.
Yeah.
And the fulfillment of being surprised by something I enjoyed was far larger than picking that song on my own free will.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Maybe it's just the anticipation game of it.
Sure.
And I think, like you said, this is very much a cover-oriented town. And that's, sometimes it's something to feel that way about, to be like, it doesn't scratch my itch. And I am equally jaded to what I do in comparison to that.
Right.
And sometimes I have an attitude that needs to be adjusted for it. But I'm happy people are out there playing. I'm happy that bars continue to say,
I know.
Do I put it on the radio or do I bring the band in and take a little bit of my profit and try to make sure something's happening here? And clubs that stick their neck out for original artists have an additional place in my life.
Absolutely.
But you need to, if someone gives you that opportunity, you need to convey to listeners why that's different,
right.
why their dollar goes farther there. If you're going to buy a cocktail and a meal, I'd rather it be at this club than this club because one of these is trying to enable me to make you something personal.
Yep. So just to add to that, it's funny, like, on social media, especially in this town, you see, the war, covers versus originals, and people bashing each other. It's like, I've never understood that. It's like, there's room for everybody.
Yeah.
There's guys that are out, some of the most popular bands in town that are doing other people's songs, and they're great musicians, but they have kids, they have lives, they gave up their dream. Why bash them for going out and doing what they love to do? They're still playing music.
Totally.
What's it matter if they wrote it or not? I mean, I always tell people, everybody is in a cover band at some point. Everybody started, for the most part, learning other people's songs to some degree. So,
well, it's going to be a balance of all things that make us happiest.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that I found when I tried to turn my lifestyle of playing more towards my original material was I was less fulfilled playing covers half-assed.
Yeah.
Now if I'm going to play it, I got to learn the record because I love songwriters. I love great production.
So you'll learn a cover just like it, you're saying, or you do your own interpretation?
I'm trying to learn more than just like it. And if I choose to go to my own interpretation later on, that's awesome. And some folks really love that blend of things where you can reinvent something for them. But if I want to show my respect for the way that song made its impact in our lives, I want to learn it like the record to at least get down to it. And every time you do that, every time that you sit down for, did you really say 2 to 3 hours every morning?
Easily.
That's a death sentence, brother. That's so hardcore.
Well, I mean, I get up at 7:38. I get my coffee and I go into my jam room and I just start watching videos. I get my looper out. And I mean, I kind of have to. I mean, as a teacher, you run out of things to teach.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had students for close to a decade now. Some students, I only know so much stuff, man. I mean, I'm not the greatest guitar player in the world. I don't know all the theory, so you got to reinvent the wheel. So you're always trying to get new ideas, like how to, reinvent something you've already taught. And I just love learning new riffs and licks and just get better. I want to get better. I think the more I've been playing, the older I get to realize, man, I'm never going to get to where I want to be, but that's okay.
Yeah, well,
It's
I
all
think
good.
just as much as it is, it's part of your person, and I can tell in the way that you live your life that you're dedicated to making the most of each day. And if I make it to tomorrow, I'll make the most of tomorrow. But today I got this amount of time, and I'm gonna do it.
Yep.
And there's an intensity to that. But some people, the moment that perceptually turns into a chore, they start to really resent the art form.
You're right.
And that's tough. Like
It's
that,
tough not to get caught in that for me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and like the yoga is kind of like my place of personal happiness, but it's a chore in my life. It's like every time I'm holding something new, it's like I hate every second of this, and I need to have a fella on YouTube keeping me accountable. Like,
Yep.
no, you're 3 breaths away from relief, but right now you are in pure agony, And if you're halfway through a lesson of Guthrie Trapp talking to you about chicken picking and hybrid picking and whatnot, it's like there's some torture there that you put yourself through because you've seen the other end of the tunnel,
Right.
and you know what's worth it on that side.
Yeah, and I don't know about you. Well, you're probably the same, but most people are their own biggest critics, right? And like I said, the older I get, the more I realize how much I don't know. When you're young, you think, "Oh man, I'm freaking awesome" and everything. But like, it's also self-loathing sometimes, and I hate to use that word, but like sometimes I see this stuff, and it's like I will never be able to play like that, and it's frustrating because you want to so bad. It's like I want to play like this guy and that guy. And I think the hardest thing, and not to go all over the place, but like the beauty of YouTube and Instagram is you discover all these unknown players. Like I would never heard of half these guys I listen to nowadays that wasn't for social media.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's personally like made me lose my own identity because I'm always trying to play like somebody else that I'm never going to be. And it's like sometimes I just forget how to play from the heart. And that's what I teach people. Like, don't listen to all these people, just play for yourself. But then it's like, oh, I'm not practicing that shit myself. So,
yeah.
But I know I can coach other people what not to do, from my mistakes. So I don't know about you, but it's hard because there's so many great musicians and players and songwriters. And it's like, back in the day, it's like you only saw what MTV showed you or the Guitar Magazine showed you, and you didn't know what was out there.
Yeah, when you had the top 10, like an Yngwie or something like that changed the way people played monumentally, and everyone in your local scene ended up sounding like that. Versus now, through the lens of YouTube or Instagram, your particular feed is tailored just to you.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not the most considerate in that, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as you are sitting there saying, I'm sitting here trying to replicate someone else and I'm losing my identity, only you know that. Only you are aware that you're trying to emulate this guy or this gal, and you end up being the culmination of all these things. Like, I forget who I heard say it the other day, but I've been trying to hold on to it of, you need to enjoy enough things that when it comes to your own work of emulating your heroes, no one knows where to put the finger. And
that's very true. Good point.
And that blew my mind, because sometimes someone will come up after I played a tune of mine and they'll hit it on the nose who I know I was ripping off. Okay. And is that the worst or the best thing? Because if you really embodied what you love about them and they felt that, then you're mutual fans of it. There's something that's between you and that.
Yep.
But sometimes it can make you feel like a hokey motherfucker, you know?
Yeah.
I said this to someone the other day.
It's a tough balance, you know?
Yeah. But it's like, if you did push-ups and you didn't want to do them, do they still count? Yes.
Yeah.
They absolutely still count. If you got up there and you played a lick that you know you took from someone else's bag, but you're saying it wasn't from your heart, you still played it.
Yeah.
It still was you, and it's only the way that you could do it with all of your imperfections.
For better, for worse.
Yeah, and your absolute aspirations in that.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah.
But you know, as someone that's stepping up with students every day and persuading them of such a powerful message, and then going through the same obstacles yourself, that is, I think, the most honorable thing about what you do as a teacher, and as someone that pays the bills on a brick and mortar so that kids can walk in here and try to find out who they are through the lens of other people's art and eventually their own.
Yeah. I mean, music saved my life, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Almost killed me too, but it saved my life, you know.
And I've been going through a handful of things in my own life where I'm trying to redefine the baseline of why I love the music. And you are a wonderful example of someone who the music took you somewhere where you didn't want to be, and you removed yourself from that, but then you reclaimed the art form. And that's really powerful, man.
Well, I appreciate that. And I kind of want to blow some smoke up your ass for a second. So, you know, do you remember where we met the first time?
I think, was it with NKG or no?
Yeah, in Hilton Head.
Yes.
So, just a quick story, because I just wanted to bring this up, and it just popped in my head. Because I'm a huge fan. Like, when people say, who's some of your favorite artists in town? I mean, you're definitely in the top 3 or 4,
Thanks,
if not number 1. When I mention names, I have a few. But man, we were down in Hilton Head playing every year, 4th of July, and
Tiki Hut.
The Tiki Hut, yeah. And you know, and again, dude, I'm jaded. I don't give a shit about who's playing before or after. I don't care if you're a rock star or whatever. I just don't care. You know, it was hot as hell, and we have to set up our gear, and there's a band up there. It's a pain in the ass because we have to set up after them. And I went up there. I'm like, and you guys are on the beach playing. It's like, who the fuck is this, man? And it's like, wait, this guy's from Cincinnati? And I remember I was like fanboy from day one. Your whole band was awesome. You were incredible. I was like, dude, I can't believe you're from Cincinnati and I've never seen you. And I'm like, wait, you play MLTs? And I was like, all these crazy things.
Yeah.
And now, of course, I still don't come out and see you play. I don't go see anybody. But I watch you and I listen to your music, and that's, you know, I support you in what you do. My point is, I was like, you were so good and talented, man. Like, you guys drew me in as a person that just doesn't really care about any, you know, who's up there, you know, for the most part, you know.
Well, I think there's something,
and I hope that came out the right way.
It means the world, brother. And your continual affirmation of what I do as someone that I believe supports this scene in a more integral way than I am right now. Like, part of the reason I have this program is because it can feel like such a selfish pursuit to say, I want my songs to do better so that I can do better so I can play for more people.
Right.
You know, I've said it many times. I have to say my name 50 times a week. And sometimes it drives me nuts. It makes me feel like an egomaniac. And then I look around and I see someone like yourself that is, again, persuading young players that your local music scene has something to offer you, in a place for you to be, for a person for you to be, for the artist that you want to grow up to be, but also We need young listeners that see things in their local community that they want to invest in.
Yeah.
You know, and that there's something to be said there about, like, you need clubs that aren't based around booze sales so that these kids can come in and see the local folks that are trying to kick ass. Yeah. Because when you go to LA or Nashville, people say our locals are the ones that are on top. Yeah. Cincinnati doesn't have that kind of hometown pride yet. But before they put me in a box, we're going to fix that.
Yeah.
You know, and
it did at one time, not just to interject, like, you know, there was a pretty strong music scene in the 90s, late 90s, and like MTV even did a special on the music scene, like Sudsy Malone's and just all the local bands that were around, Afghan Wigs and a bunch of bands.
Yeah. What was your experience like? So in the 90s, you're in your young 20s, and you're playing in a handful of hard rock punk bands, or like what kind of stuff you play?
How dare you, sir? No, so I grew up kind of a heavy metal guy.
Cool.
It's no secret, for better, for worse. And, you know, my first couple of bands, you know, Rock Bottom or whatever we were called, you know, back in the day. It's a funny story. Is I think my first band we were called The Invasion, and it was with Noah Hunt, who went on to play with Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Yeah.
And, you know, we played like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden covers. That was my first band, like in high school. I didn't even drive yet. My mom would take me to his house and drop me off for practice. So I probably did that in my early 20s, and then I got into an original band. I discovered like James Brown and the Chili Peppers, and I had this band called Vibe Tribe. And in most of my 20s, I was doing that originals thing, and we played around gigs, local gigs, and that was incredible, man. I mean, we practiced, we rehearsed, and we were really fucking good. Like, I still go back with the songs with pride. I'm like, man, I wish we had better recordings and better videos of this stuff. It was really good music. And then so then I moved downtown, I think like in my late 20s, and I was living downtown, and like Main Street was happening. There was all these bars. Like, I was playing 7 nights a week. Then I think I had a cover band called Marsha Brady I started.
No way.
Yeah. And
Marsha Brady's continued for a long time since then, correct?
So, without pissing anybody off, it has nothing to do with the original Marsha Brady. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like I joined, and I don't mean this toward anybody. I'm friends with all the guys in the band.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's really no affiliation to the original lineup.
Gotcha.
One of the guys was in like a later version of it and just kept the name, which I don't give a shit.
Yeah. But it's a very odd thing when a project, takes certain assets of other projects and continues forward and whatnot. And you hope that, you're someone that seems to eradicate the issues and bitterness in life that comes along with, we have a small city that tends to look around at each other, and people question the possessiveness of what you own and what you don't own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to trademark the name Marsha Brady.
Exactly.
From the Brady Bunch, but it's just a different animal. When we started, which is fine. They're making money. That's all cool. They're friends of mine. I don't give a shit what anybody does, but. Man, back in the day, it was a really good music scene. And the funny thing is bands were making more back then than they are now. It's crazy. I was playing 7 nights a week, sometimes 9 gigs a week. Me and my buddy Jimmy would do happy hour somewhere. Then we would jump across the street to the old Jefferson Hall. And I lived downtown. It was a glorious time to be a musician. It was decadent. There was a lot of partying.
Yeah.
It was so cool, man. I mean, it was just so far before your time, obviously. But there was like 10 bars in a couple block district that would have live music, and all your friends would be playing. So we'd go on break, go across the street to RBC and watch, the Menus play, or Jonesy, or whoever, or some original bands, do a shot, go to the next bar. And it just went on from 10 to 2 every night. And then they were doing bands sometimes 5 nights a week, some of these bars.
Yeah.
You can go on a Tuesday night and see a full live band. You can't see that anymore in Cincinnati. It's very rare.
Yeah. Well, and budget's a very difficult thing when all these clubs are being gouged by ASCAP and CSEC and BMI for hosting cover bands.
Yeah.
And there's, and I don't know what is the proper legal way around this, but I would hope that if a venue was willing to stick their neck out and say, we are an original venue,
right,
they shouldn't have to be beholden to the same prices and fees because they are supporting the artist, but they still
Absolutely.
get gouged.
Yeah.
They still get taken down for that.
I don't know how that works, but yeah, it's kind of
it's shady.
It's a weird area, yeah.
Yeah.
You want artists to get paid, but it's like, really? I don't know. People just covering your music.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with the world of streaming, with folks making less money off their master recordings, inherently the publishing also makes less. There's a reason that people are more desperate for their chunk of change. But as an artist that, like I said, if you make a box of 100 CDs, like my last EP, I know that I'm going to make no money on streaming, so I printed CDs.
Yep.
And I'm selling them for $5,
And
I
your
hope
fans will buy them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they see that you've gone the extra mile, and every single one of those CDs is worth the equivalent of almost a year's worth of streams for these songs.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's just not that point, and people act like $5 is nothing. $5 times the amount of CDs that I'm going to print is what's going to give me the motivation to make another one of these.
Well, here's something too that's related to your point. People are always complaining about the tickets or ticket prices, and yeah, I mean some of it's a bit ridiculous. I understand that, but people have to understand these artists aren't making dick anymore for money. These, especially the younger, bands that are coming up. I can't think of a good example, but like there's bands that are touring and that had record deals. Yeah, they gotta survive somehow. And if you want to hear their music, support them. Pay the ticket prices, buy their merch, whatever, because they're not making any money off record sales.
Yeah.
None, zero. I mean, very few bands unless it's licensed, and you probably even know more about it than me. But the licensing and there's just not a lot of money to be made like it used to be.
Well, it's changed dramatically for licensing. That's a world that I really haven't dipped my toes into. But now it seems rather than if Sony's going to reach out to use your music for a commercial of theirs, they're not contacting you. They're going on the same website where everyone's underbid themselves so that they are widely available. So as the opportunities in the pool to choose from is widened out, the amount you can ask for has gone down.
Yep.
And that's the free market, and I'm cool with that for what it is. But specifically in the world of tickets, you look at a Ticketmaster sign like that, and there's a $12 fee per ticket that you're going to pay if you're going to go to Riverbend and see an act. And it's like, so who's taking this $12? It's a non-American firm that has no vested interest in making the listener's experience more worthwhile for the perpetuity of the company to do better in this world. It's just a cash grab.
Yep.
And then there's local options like Cincy Ticket that does a wonderful thing in local venues and making sure that there's good online options where the QR codes work out and you can buy them in advance. But you know what makes the best ticket price? Cash at the door, baby. Cash at the door so they can go straight to the hands.
Cash is king.
Yeah, and it sucks that there's risk associated with that for these venues.
Yeah.
And people feel like they can't put a $10 charge on the door because it's going to turn away customers. And you need to price yourself into the customers that you want to have. Like one thing I would ask about your days of the 90s where there's a really poppin' Main Street is like, what's the listener populace like?
Well, it was crazy. It was young people, a lot of young people going out. People of all ages, really. But like I said, I was in my early late 20s, starting off in that scene. And you'd have, really, you'd see people my age, 30s, 40s, even like retirees. I don't know about retirees, but like 50s, 60s, up that area. They seemed old at the time. Now that I'm not old, it's but everybody came out. Everybody loved live music back then. It was just because people still played, instruments, and I'm not here to knock anything nowadays, but radio is definitely different than it is today, right? Mm-hmm. We can all agree on that.
Yeah.
And there were still musical heroes, not as many today. So people just love live music, and it was just a different atmosphere, man. It just really was.
Yeah. Well, I think casual players end up being some of the best listeners that local acts could ever have.
Right.
Because
you're right.
If you suffered on piano, whether you wanted to take the lessons as a kid or not, you know what it fucking takes to perform that song the way that you did. Or if you take enough guitar lessons to know what it takes to grow the callus, and then to stick your neck out and say, all right, I just played you what you wanted to hear. Now please shut up and give me a chance to give you something new, to feed you something you've never had.
Exactly.
And when you have an opportunity to speak to the hearts of students, for the 70 students that are on your weekly setup right now, maybe 10 of those kids will move on and be full-timers, and we should feel immense pride that they have stuck it out and gone through those years. And the other 60 kids have a profoundly different appreciation for the music because of the place it served in their life.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Another thing, too, I don't know about you, obviously, I hate to keep bringing up the age thing, but there's a big gap in our age here. So, our fans that come out to my cover band shows are older, so we're not seeing as many young kids anymore, which I get it. We're not doing stuff that we gear toward that, but even like these free concerts, we do a lot of these summer concerts, and I call it the Weekend at Bernie's tour because it's you don't know how to take it. You know, you go to these places in Mason or Westchester, and it's cool, and we're blessed to do it. But like everybody's sitting in lawn chairs, and it's like Weekend at Bernie's. It's like, are you guys alive out there?
Yeah.
And you just don't see many kids coming out anymore. And you see some kids, it's cool. You get the occasional, but it's like, where's the younger kids, man? Is it just that we're so old? Because I don't see a lot of younger bands coming up doing this kind of thing. You know, I'm sure there's a great original scene thriving, but I don't see a lot of younger cover bands.
Yeah.
And that's a good experience, whether you like it or not, to get your chops by playing in bars and playing other people's stuff.
It definitely
make some money and support what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think there's categories of gigs that seem divided on that line of originals and covers.
Right.
That in my personal experience, I'm open to whatever is going to be going on. Like I'm happy to play for the municipalities. I'm happy to play for Jeff Ruby's. I'm happy to play for any of these folks that are willing to give me stage time. Like God bless the Rubies. They let me go in there and play my stuff for the highest class clientele that I'm going to find. You know,
Absolutely.
The people with expendable income that could feel profoundly impacted by a song, then bring me on for a private party that puts me in the green for a month.
Yep.
And you can't beg for that kind of thing. The only reason it's worked out is because Jeff and his son Dylan have come out to enough of my shows to see that, okay, he's gonna bust ass for his tunes, and then he's gonna play what we ask him to if that's the case. And absolutely, I will.
Yeah. And you're a great product. I mean, they're not stupid. They want to bring in the best quality they can.
But I end up being a younger guy on that scene that's doing something different. And I have friends that are a little younger than me. They're just in the original world that say, I wouldn't do that. And then I have friends on the cover side of things. They're maybe a little jaded towards losing money on original gigs who say, I wouldn't do that. And for me, the happiest blend has always been in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's tough to walk that line in a city that's still, I would say now, trying to reclaim a listener populace that takes pride in their local musicians and sees value in that kind of thing.
Yeah. And, you know, you just hit on the head. It's like nobody knows the answer, right? If we did, somebody would have written a book and we'd have all read it and we'd all be successful. But like, you talk about walking that line between covers and originals. And I've tried to do it with so many bands. And for me, it's just never worked. It's like, okay, if we really want to make all this money, you know, we got to do this. And if we really want to have our integrity and do originals and sell our music, we got to do this. You know, so it's hard to teeter that line, and you're doing it. Seem to be doing pretty damn well at it. And
I appreciate
I think
that.
a lot of artists can't do that or don't know how to do it.
Yeah,
I certainly didn't.
Well, I'm fortunate that in my business, and this is only by the grace of my parents who told me at 14, if you want to do this for the rest of your life, let's get you an accountant and an LLC and start doing this right.
Yeah.
And they've continually said, if you want this to be your dream career and not just the low-hanging fruit, then keep writing every day and keep finding out what you're made of in that.
Yeah.
But you said a word there, the integrity, where I think the integrity of our music scene needs to be providing the kind of quality that our listeners want to enjoy.
Right.
Because when you compare that to a pop star show where the DJ starts the track and most of the background vocals are going to be coming through on the track and they're just doing the lead lines, and then when the chorus kicks in, there's a vocal double because they like to hold the mic to people.
Right.
And that's cool. I've gone to those shows and had an awesome time. It's a different type of entertainment. Like, I now know in my acoustic shows, 90% of the time after me, there's going to be a DJ.
Yeah.
So I got a drum pad because I'm gonna kick those subs the same way that guy's going to kick those subs, because I'm not going to lose a game of weight that's right in front of me.
Right.
But it's hard to continually stay on top of it. Like, one thing I struggle with, and I'm sure this kind of goes back to your daily dedication of 2 to 3 hours of learning new material, is there's always new covers to be learned.
Yep.
And those take as much time as writing new songs.
If not more, sometimes, you know, the songs come naturally, usually for me. It's just,
Exactly.
It's funny too, because I've been a cover player most of my life, and I still think I suck at it. Like, there's guys that I know that can, even students of mine, that can come in and sound like anybody. I'm not that guy. Like, you know, there's guys that come in and sound like Eddie Van Halen or whoever, you know, insert guitar player. I've just not been that guy. I guess it's kind of good because you have your own voice, but at the same time, it's like some of those people that can do that, though, can't write melodies or write songs, and so, you know.
Some folks are utility players inherently, and that's a really impressive skill set. Like, I play with one wedding band that has really taken me to the next level of appreciating the track, learning the song, learning the parts, learning my place in the song.
Yeah.
When you're not playing is as important as when you are playing.
Yeah.
But then you see
true.
there's folks in here that know how to hump and dump material in a way that I just can't.
Yeah.
I tend to hold on to things a little bit longer. And there's covers in my life that have been staples, the backbone of what I present to people as my regular, that have lost me jobs because I don't learn top 40 new country that often. And I will if I get asked to, or if I feel impacted by the material in the way that they do. I think that's been a hill that I'm trying to get myself from dying on is, should I not learn it because I don't like it? No, you should learn what they like about it, appreciate that they have their own subjective taste, and maybe at some point that's going to teach you how to like it.
Can I give you the correct answer for that?
Please.
There is no correct answer. Because that is the age-old question, man. Like, I've gone through that still to this day with my band. Like, it's like, no, we can't play that, or we can't do a country song. It's like, I guess the older I get, it's like, man, I don't really care what I'm playing. It's like, they're all cover songs. What the fuck do I care? I didn't write any of these songs. What do I care if it's Jason Aldean or Led Zeppelin? It doesn't matter, man. If it, in my analogy is like, okay, if you have two pizza places right across the street from each other, and this place is, they're going to pay this pizza place all this money because they're using these ingredients, and this place is not making much because they're using these ingredients. I'm going to use these ingredients. It's a no-brainer. You know, I'm playing covers to make money. That's it. You know? And I'm trying to play less in life because it's work. You know, it's like, it's not as much fun as it used to be. I don't drink anymore. I've been sober 13 years, and I'll be honest, that was part of the gig, man. It was fun. That was part of the deal. It was like hanging out before and after and partying. It's, you know, I'm the last one there and the first one out. You know, I don't hang.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You know,
it's a job. Sure.
It's a job.
I think redefining that for yourself too, like that part of the industry sucks you in quicker than we all like to admit.
Yeah.
And
I don't know about nowadays. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, I'd be curious to know your take on that. Because I know back then it was pretty acceptable for musicians to, I mean, I could tell you stories all day long, you know, passing out on stage. It was cute back then. I think now it's not cute. You know, I don't think it's got the same allure. So maybe you tell me, is it like it's still acceptable for musicians to get really drunk and hammered? I mean,
I think it depends on your brand. Like, there's gigs of mine that are, you can drink all you want. And I know at any point I could get way too far past my place. And I don't know that I'd lose my gig for that as long as I did my job.
Understood.
So it has to be a personal call of where's the quality drop off where I'm unhappy with this. But then when you start to look for, I need a gig that's going to let me drink as much as I want,
right,
versus the gigs that I'm not allowed to drink at. It's like, those are hard lines to walk. And I've definitely lost a couple of gigs because I was too inebriated and I wasn't the best version of myself. And I'm not proud of that, but I look at those as stepping stones towards betterment of, like, there's no indulgence that's going to outweigh what I feel when I'm proud of a gig. Yeah. And your pride in a gig is not the number one thing, but I do my best to make sure that people want to come back out here and see the kind of show that I want to put on.
Well,
that's
you're smart enough to get that, and I know that I certainly wasn't. To me, it was, again, sorry to cut you off, but it was part of the deal. It's like, I always thought people wanted to see how messed up you can get and still play and do shots with everybody. And it was a more decadent time, but it's just interesting to hear your take on it, and that you've lost a couple gigs, but you also have the wits about you to, like, realize, no, they need to see the best Matt Waters they can get, you know.
Yeah.
And that's not the inebriated version.
Well, I think it's hard to forgive yourself for those things and still step into those clubs that will let you go that way.
Right.
And draw a better line for yourself. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm trying to reclaim the baseline of what I love about this. And for me, it's the songs, and specifically the songs that are pulled from the ether through my own mind, through my own hands, and hopefully find a way into someone else's life as either a passive soundtrack or a little bit of escapism, or just a little bit of companionship on days where you wonder if that message was meant for just me. You know,
that's a pretty cool thing too. Because music, like I said, it saves lives, man. You never know what your lyrics are just talking to somebody in any situation, whether they're up or down or in the middle or just trying to get through a process. And I'm sure you've written a song about so many topics that people can relate to, like, you know, whether it's whatever, a breakup or a new experience or up or down. But it's just so inspirational when you can touch somebody on that level. It's pretty intense feeling.
And there's so many aspects of life where you don't want to be the one that talks too much, that said too much about a certain thing. The songwriting is the only place where you can be so transparent with yourself that you may not even like what you wrote, but when you look at it and you find out that's true, it's there.
Yeah.
There's songs in my life that spoke more honesty to myself than I could in my own mind.
Yeah.
There's a song that I keep thinking about, like I said, I'm 17 days from getting married. Maybe 2 years into my relationship with Emily, I wrote this song called Puzzle. And for the longest time, I thought it was hokey. For the longest time, I thought, oh, this is a throwaway. And the more I've looked at this little time capsule of what I was thinking and unfiltered just a little bit of it, the more I found that was the song that told me I had found my person.
Wow. It's pretty heavy.
And maybe it's just for me too. Like songs don't have to be monumental hits to be huge for you.
Right. You're leaving your legacy behind.
Yeah.
Whether your songs become number one, which I hope they do, or to the masses all over the world, or to a small circle of people, when you're long and gone from this earth, you have already established a great gift to pass on for other people.
Yeah.
You've left a great mark on this world, which a lot of people unfortunately don't. They live their lives and they work their 9-to-5 jobs. Nothing wrong with that, but there's not really much legacy to leave behind. So I always thought it's important to leave some sort of legacy behind because that's all you have.
Totally.
We're all temporary.
Well, yeah, we're so temporary. And I saw a Zappa interview the other day where they said, like, how much do you care about your legacy? And he said, I don't. And I think that's hard to believe. I think we all want to scratch that itch, but life is also about letting go of the things you thought you want for knowing better. And when you invest in the next generation so that they can better invest in the next generation, that is the unnamed continuance of betterment.
Right.
Like one thing that I think is the most impactful part of anyone's playing is their attitude.
Yeah.
Whether it's the bad motherfucker on a drum kit that shows he doesn't have a care in the world and he's going to rip your face off, or the guitar player that's moving at the speed of light but he's still cool and calculated and down to the notes. Like when your attitude is honest and present and impassionate, people need that when they go into their 9-to-5. If you're sitting in front of an Excel sheet, I want to show you that life could be as great as you want to make it, even if you got tuna salad for lunch and the same soda you like to drink. I don't give a fuck. I need to light you up a little bit. Yeah. Because this is the only thing we're sharing is right here, right now.
And just be nice. It's not that hard to be a decent human being. That's what I find. Like, you know what? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Just be humble and just be a good person. And that really makes you more successful than anything. Because, we all know assholes in the business and we know great people. I'm talking to one right now. Quick story about that. I had a Scotty Bratcher guitar clinic last weekend. It was really cool. And Scotty's by far one of my absolute favorite guitar players, and he just happens to be a local guy. And his talent is limitless. Like, he's the real deal. He has that gift that you can't teach people. And he's maybe the most humble guy I know. Like, to be that talented and just be so sweetheart of a guy. But I'm going to get the story wrong. But he was talking about he was at the Gibson factory, and I don't know all these guys' names, but he was talking to this main guy that his name's on the head, whatever. I don't know. But somebody important. They were asking about, again, I'm going to mess up the question. I think it was like, if you could do anything or have anything, what would it be? Something, one of those questions, you know what I mean? And he was talking like, well, probably most people, the answer they want to hear is like, oh, I'd buy a yacht and I would do this and do that. But he said he really put some thought into it because the guy asked him, and his answer was pretty profound. It's like, to just be able to give what I have back so somebody can do it better. It's like, yeah, dude, you've got it. You've got the right attitude. That's what it's about. You have this gift. And you're not like trying to hog it or do anything. You're just trying to give it back and show somebody the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty important. That's all about the legacy.
There's an absolute there, man. Yeah. I saw who's the fellow that plays Marty McFly?
Oh, shit, I don't know.
What I can't remember his name.
Marty from
Back to the Future.
Yeah. Oh.
And he has I think he has Parkinson's.
Oh, Michael J. Fox. Sorry.
Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a quote that I saw. It was one of those like man, there's something really hokey about a Facebook reel with like some really like cinematic music and a heavy quote with big captions.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And he said something like optimism is sustainable with gratitude. And we all have blessings that may not outweigh the bullshit going on in our life. But if you work every day to utilize this bag of blessings that you have, regardless how much it may have dwindled, then you're doing the right thing by yourself. I'm someone that, as we sit here right now, we're sitting in my parents' basement. I have two of the most loving parents that have supported me every day of my career. If there was no food in my fridge, they would feed me. If there's no one at my show, they would show up to it. I am beyond blessed, and sometimes I feel like I've been handed too much. I've been given too great of an opportunity. And in moments like that, where I start to feel sorry for myself and my blessings, that's when I realize I've gone the exact wrong direction. So instead, I try to sing from the mountaintops how amazing good parents have impacted my life, and how blessed I am to get to do this every day by the vehicle of the great work they've done in their life.
Well, and it shows in your attitude. I mean, seriously, not to sound hokey, but your parents obviously did a wonderful job because you're a wonderful human being and you're giving back and you're doing, how old are you? 26?
27.
Yeah, 27. Yeah, to be so young and really so wise, to be like to doing the podcast and like doing all the things you do and just your knowledge and just talking to you. Like the first time we got together and I think we had a meeting at Panera or something just to talk. I was like, this guy knows his shit. Like he's really, really ahead of the game. And that's another thing I meant to say this earlier. We kind of got off track here, but you were talking about like your parents and the LLC and stuff. So, there's very few things in my life I would say I would do over, but the business side of it I would have changed a little bit because I didn't know what a 401k was. Nobody told me about it. Unfortunately, my parents didn't. They weren't that way. My dad was a jazz musician, so that wasn't even a thought. You know what I mean?
An astounding jazz musician, though, man. There's something really cool about getting to see you pull things from his tradition, and the way that you continue that in your own form.
I appreciate that. But my point is, and this is kind of geared toward you and me together, is like what I found. So again, kind of a long-winded thing here. Success changes over your lifetime. When I was young, the only success in my mind was to be a rock star. That's it. Tour bus, stadiums, the whole 9 yards. And eventually that dream, you either make it or you don't. And that's not even if you make it, like necessarily the best thing in your life. It can be detrimental.
Yeah.
But my point is your goals kind of change as you evolve as a human being. And what I found out, and this is where you come into play, is I think I finally made it. I've been persistent my whole life, and I've worked very hard. And I think that's what it takes. So I think if you work hard, you will achieve your maximum success no matter what you do, as long as you don't give up. So I've seen so many of my friends that I grew up playing with that were so talented, way more talented than me. And it's like every year, every decade, you see a few more drop out of the race. And like I'm one of the last ones standing. Like I just didn't give up. I don't know how to do anything else. This is all I know how to do. So I'm not going to do anything else. I got a degree, whatever, but I got that later in life, and it's just a music business. So I'm already using it. So I think you're doing the right thing, man. Like you just keep doing it, and no matter what happens, you've already got the business side going, and the persistence will just pay off. Who knows where you'll end up? Yeah. But it's going to be something you like, and it's going to be in music, I would think. You know, and you're going to be successful just by your attitude and just by the long distance run. Yeah, because it is a race. It's a long race.
It's a miracle to find something that turns the lights on for you, like music did for you and I.
Yeah.
There's people in their 50s that are still trying to find out who they are. Because they didn't like their career, they did it to make ends meet, and it's like, man, there's no amount in the bank that's going to fulfill you if you don't have passion.
You got to. Otherwise, to me, it's a waste of life, man. It really is. Yeah. To just work and exist. I don't know. For me, it's kind of a waste of life.
Yeah. I think there's other avenues out there that try to protect and help people in that, though, like the spiritual realm. Like I'm in a place in my life where I'm trying to reclaim my relationship with God. And like we said, like we're both kids that grew up in the Catholic Church. I don't necessarily identify with a book and a bag of teachings. But again, when I wake up every day, I know that I am not here by my own good graces. I am blessed insurmountably by the people and the opportunities in my life, and you need someone to thank for that.
Yeah.
And to put a label on the great unknown does not mean that you know it, but it means that you're at least trying to categorize your thanks in a certain direction that feels productive. So folks that may be missing the hobby that turns them on in life, or the projects that they can eat shit at every day, and then one day it breaks, and that's the aha moment. Like, the aha moment, I think, is the closest you get in life to appreciating the magnitude of God.
Right.
It's like the ability to do more, to do better, to break through glass ceilings like that. That's magical, man.
It is magical, and I think guys like us are lucky because, I found music early on. I love music from as early as I can remember, but like, especially like when I discovered like the band Kiss. So if you're my age, 55 years old, and you grew up in my era, and you're a boy, you listen to Kiss. I outgrew it. No offense to anybody, but that was the thing that got us into it. It was this magical thing, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to be that, but I never even thought about it as a business. I did it for the pure love of it. So I think that's why you and I got into it. Like, I didn't think about, I want to be a rock star, but I didn't realize rock stars had money and was a business, and you had to hire accountants, all this shit. But it was just this pure joy. It was this magical feeling that nothing else gave me, and I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. It's okay to just do that. Like, a lot of people I know, they kind of gave up on music, and I'm a little jealous of some of them, because like now they just do it when they want to do it for, back to the reason they started. And that's okay too. It's like, man, you're a great player. Your life has changed. It went in this direction. Totally cool that you got a career change. You're paying the bills. And guess what? When you pick up that guitar, it's still the same feeling. That's what it's all about. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're making $1 million or you're playing in a cover band on a weekend. It's the same feeling, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, you need to diversify your access to the freedom to live your life.
Right.
In developing a school, hopefully you've developed some off time while people are still teaching in the building, where you can make enough to make ends meet, so you can go out and get on your bike and feel like a human being again for a little while.
Yeah.
I saw a thing today about like the way millionaires become billionaires is they acquire companies that can run themselves. And I think if you're in the pursuit of uncountable amounts of cash, fuck it, have fun. That's fine.
Yeah.
But there's great advice there of find people that you trust to delegate them to the best of their abilities, and take part in their success.
Yeah.
Don't take a cut of their success, but if you're able to help set them up to do what they do at a better level, then you will grow together.
Right.
And bandmates are that, songwriters in my peripheral are that. Like this show is a reason to champion other people, because other people doing well that have been on this show is going to help me.
Absolutely.
I know there's a little bit of a selfish pursuit there.
Well,
but,
that's just, it has to be.
Yeah.
You have to get something out of it, I would think.
Yeah, but the altruism is I want to sing someone else's praises so that someone else can find the artist that they've been missing in their life, because it might be the person that sits in the car next to me and drives 8 hours down to Hilton Head and puts on these shows with me. It's like, these are people I adore, and I want to see them do these things.
Yeah, well, you're exposing, I was watching some of your stuff this morning. I mean, you had not just musicians on here, so you're all kinds of different people on here, which is cool. It's like, was it a contractor you had on here?
Yeah, Mike Bash.
Yeah, Mike
Who's
Bash.
doing the Moorline Mansion right now.
Yeah.
But, I was missing artists all around me for so long, and this avenue has opened me up to that. It's like, that dude is an artist. He looks at a building that is covered in human feces and boards.
Yeah.
Okay, knows how to pull it out and make it into somebody's home.
It's definitely an art form.
Yeah, that's a miracle.
And it's cool that you're exposing that to people like me that wouldn't, just never know about it. So it's cool.
And he's our neighbor. He's someone that deserves our love and praise for that.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine that I went to college with named Kalia that works for a company called Beyond Guilt that helps folks that are coming out of incarceration and reclaiming their lives and whatnot. It's like, I don't know what kind of art form it is to be able to have compassion for people that the first thing you read about them is the worst thing they've ever done, and then you backtrack to finding out the greatest qualities of them and how to refine their life from that.
Yeah.
That is a crazy
That's
art
heavy.
form.
That is heavy, man. Yeah.
And she crushes it, and it's made me love and appreciate a friend much more for that reason.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, people can be defined their whole life by one or two actions. It's like everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Shit, I make one every day.
Yeah.
At least one.
Well, it's a hard thing. Like, as someone that turned the corner on a life that, wasn't what you wanted it to be, what was the process like of letting go of guilt associated with that and reclaiming the things you love, like music?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too far into this, but like for me, it was I'm an alcoholic, and I got really bad. I've been sober 13 years, and I probably should have been dead. You know, I came close to it, and if I hadn't got sober, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So for me, it was just getting sober. I had no choice. I got to a point where my life was unmanageable. I was just existing. I was just living to drink every day just to get to the next day. It was a horrible, fucking miserable hellhole. And I was able to climb out of it, and I have not looked back. So, you learn how to live a whole new life. I mean, I've been smoking pot since I was probably, I'm not exaggerating, 10 years old and drinking. I mean, that was just part of the deal. You know, we were stealing our parents' beer and our neighbors' weed and doing it. Like as a kid in 5th grade, I remember doing it and listening to Ozzy Osbourne. You know, so it's always been part of my life. And then to learn how to live a whole new life without any of those aspects, and you're 40 years old, it's insane. It's insane and it's intense. It's a whole new thing. So after a few years of kind of adjusting being sober, which it takes that long, really, I kind of put that toward being a workaholic and realized, okay, yeah, that part of my life is gone. I'm not going to be a rock star anymore. What can I do to just really make a living? That's where you first start off. You got to be humble and say, okay, I just need to survive. I remember when I first got sober, I had no job. I lost everything. The only job I ever got fired from in my life, I don't tell the story to many people, was from Buddy Rogers, who gave me my first job in the music thing. You know, since '96, I was working for him, I think. And when you show up to work drunk and don't show up at all, yeah, you should get fired. Yeah. I deserved it. I lasted longer than I should have. And that's a hard thing to talk about. It's a hard pill to swallow. To look back on that, it's like a whole other person. It's dark, to think, wow, I did some of that stuff. So my point to that was, I didn't have anything. I remember applying at 40 years old at a car wash, and they didn't hire me. I had nothing. I was starting from scratch. I didn't play music. I just gave up. I didn't have anything. So, but I have enough friends and support system that over time you prove yourself and you start building yourself back up. You can feel sorry for yourself for so long, but that doesn't. After a while, people are not going to listen. So I built myself up and just started getting out there again and went to school online, got a degree, and my buddies and the Naked Karate Girls hired me. Then I got this music salon going and really become a workaholic. So that's kind of, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but like my mind just does not turn off. From the morning I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm thinking about projects and what else I can do to just reinvent myself and do things.
Yeah.
I love it. I love being a workaholic.
Yeah.
And one more thing I want to add to this. Sorry to be so long-winded here.
No, you're fine.
I know so many talented musicians personally, friends of mine, and people in this town that I don't know that well that I see that are so much more talented than me. Like, I have to work so hard, believe it or not. Like, people think, oh, man, your dad's this great musician. Man, I suck compared to him. I have to work so hard to just be an okay player. And I really mean that. I have to work my ass off every day, my whole life in practice, to be okay. But I see these guys that have so much talent, natural, but man, they don't have the drive, or they don't have they're just missing that one thing to be successful. And I see it, and it's like, man, I don't get hired for these gigs because I'm the best player, but I'm prepared, I show up, and I work my ass off. And you can count on me. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I think I kind of got lost in my own words here. I'm tripping over my thoughts. But point is, yeah, you just got to work hard and prove you can do it. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think there's so much more to be gained from folks like yourself that can personally attest to everyone changes at their own rock bottom, and everyone defines that differently. But when folks are willing to be honest about the process of turning and coming back, like the thing about the car wash, like that's
I never told the story. I don't think of anybody ever.
Dude, that's visceral, and people don't realize what you go through to be what you are. Some people might look at what you used to do and the person you are now and see something cohesive in the music. But tell me about picking up a guitar for the first time again after all this. Did you set it away and not touch it, or did you play throughout the first couple years of?
Oh, I played, man. I mean, a lot of it's kind of like, a lot of the time, really, I was such a blackout alcoholic. I mean, there's a couple years of my life I don't remember a whole lot about. I know it sounds crazy, and I was even functioning like, I was still performing and working and stuff, but I just don't remember because I blacked out every day of my life drinking. It's crazy, but I drove to work. I played, I did gigs, I taught, but I think once I did get sober, yeah, I mean, I always played. It took me a while to just kind of get the passion back of like, do I want to do this for a living again?
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to stop playing in bars. I was done. I knew that. Like when I was done, I'm done. I'm like, so, you know, a dear friend of mine, Don Gauck Sr., he just looked at me, and he's an old jazz musician who's got stories that would blow you away. Like, you know, Rolling Stones and Motley Crue got nothing on this guy, these old jazz guys. But he just looked at me once and he said, Sean, drinking's not an option for you anymore. And it's like this fucking bolt of lightning went off. It's like, holy shit, man. I finally got it. It's like, it's not an option. You can do anything. I can run out and go in and out of traffic and take my chances, but I can't pick up alcohol. And I just think about that. I mean, it was easy. For me, I am blessed. I don't know why God let me give up that desire to drink, because most people don't. I mean, it's a high failure rate of people that drink and, you know, can't quit. But when I was done, I was done. You know, rock bottom for me was pretty dark and sitting in a jail cell and with nothing. I just didn't want to go back. I was done. I wanted to quit, and I didn't know how. But it just it was just a spiritual thing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
second chance at life, basically.
Yeah. And as someone, like I said, like I'm trying to reclaim the baseline of what I love in this life. And there's so many distractions, whether for you it's drugs, alcohol, sex, online attention. There's so many fickle vices that can become the primary, and it just seems like a supplemental piece of your life. It just seems like a perk of the job, you know, part of the game, until you realize your reward system has been absolutely hijacked for these things.
Absolutely, man. That's so well said, yeah.
And it's such a bitch to find out that you've been denying yourself the things that you told yourself that you loved, you know. And if you're fortunate enough to find that out before you lose the people that will hold your hand through those process and say, you're worth it, we need you here, we want to see you get better, then you're on the better side of this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because some people find it out, you know, way too late, and they burned every single bridge. And this is not a life to live alone.
No, and I see a lot of, you know, I know I burnt bridges, you know, but I've made amends, and if somebody hasn't forgiven me, there's nothing else I can do about it. You know, I'm truly sorry for any, you know, I did a lot of bad things, you know, didn't kill anybody or anything, but, you know, just shit you're not proud of, you know, like just whatever. But it's a gradual thing, you know. What I tell people too is like most of my life wasn't like that. I mean, I was a pretty cool guy. Most of it was a fun time. It was a fun ride, but it just ramps up. It's sneaky, man. I mean, you know, even in my 30s, and I was still pretty disciplined. Like, okay, I'm only going to have one beer, one shot per set, which might be a lot to a lot of people. But for me, I was a warm up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then even like I was playing in a band called Freak Bass. We were on the road. We'd play out of town and tour, whatever. And a lot of times we wouldn't go until midnight. And think about it, you know, what is there to do in a bar when you're waiting for 4 other bands to play? Drink. But we were actually pretty disciplined for a while, you know, but like we're only going to do, it was like 2 or 3 shots before we go on, which might seem a lot, but, you know, at midnight, if you're there from 7 o'clock, it's not a lot.
Totally.
So, but then it just starts to, you know, other things get introduced to the party, and then it starts to sneak up, then you maintain, but just like overnight shit happens. So it's a long build up for me anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so.
When they become supplemental parts of the thing that you love so much, it's hard to disentangle those things, you know? And I think that's the creeping line that happens in all of our lives. But I think there's so many folks that aren't bold enough to return to the primary thing.
Right.
You know, free of the entanglements and the weights that come along with that. And I think your story with that boldness and the passion and the reclaiming of who you are and all the excellence that you can provide, even on the worst days where you're doing push-ups even though you don't want to. It's like that's what makes you a bad motherfucker, Sean McGary. And it makes you a cornerstone for young students that are trying to figure this out for themselves, who they're going to be. Because up until hopefully 18, you don't have to worry about these vices taking over your life. And
absolutely,
if you're in an environment where they do take you earlier, then hopefully you can turn the corner earlier and get back to this short 80 years that we all get to live, you know?
Right. And man, and I don't ever preach to anybody. If it gets brought up, you know, I trust people are like, oh man, you're so heroic. It's like, man, I'm not a fucking hero. I'm an alcoholic. You know, I just happen to beat it. You know what I mean? I just got through it. So, you know, like I said, I don't have any supernatural power. I was just an alcoholic that basically made it through the other side. And I can only offer my experience. Like I said, I don't have any magical thing, or I'd cure everybody. But it's funny because I do get, if I get a random text or call from or on Facebook from a musician I don't know that well, it's like, oh, I know why you're reaching out to me, and that to me is probably the best gift I think I can offer anybody, is to potentially save a life through that, to offer up my experience. Like because I'm one of those guys, like if I can do it, anybody can. I mean that because I love to party, man. I like to do a lot of things that were killing me. Yeah. Loved it. I mean, loved it, but I just can't do it anymore. Yeah. I can't drink it socially.
I've heard that in 12 steps, that's part of the calling, is to be there for other folks, to sponsor folks, to be there.
It is. And I'm not. I was part of a Tri Health in Bethesda when I first got sober. I went to the year program, and they asked me to stay on and become a counselor, whatever you want to call it, and it was volunteer, and I did that all the way up into COVID hit, and it stopped, and then I just got so busy I never went back, and I think the program died. But that was my calling. I just unfortunately don't have the time. I haven't been to an AA meeting in years. I have dear friends that go every morning. I'm in a good spot, and if somebody reaches out to me, I'll be glad to help. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, but I think the heroic aspect of what you do is 2 to 3 hours in the morning, and then you go in there and you smile to the kids. Like, what you have to give is what you have to give. What you have to look back on is different between everybody, and getting over those feelings of forgiving yourself, and then saying that, if someone else hasn't forgiven me for that, I can't change that about them. Knowing that you can only take care of yourself is such a hard part of what we do, because we're in a capacity where you try to fix things for people. Music is there to help you, and you like to imagine that you're out there saving lives by being a drinking buddy. Sometimes it's like you at your best is all you have to offer, and if you can't get yourself to 100% capacity, then you don't have shit to give.
Absolutely.
If you're sitting there at 30% acting like you're doing better by other people, it's like, no, you're proving yourself that you can't ditch the baggage and get back to the main game.
Yeah, you got to be 100% if you're going to get back. That's for sure. You can't half-ass it. I mean, maybe you could, but it's funny you said like heroic and work in the morning, but like back to my point, man. Like I have to do that stuff. I don't want to. Trust me. I'd rather be out riding my bike or just doing a million other things. I have to do it because I have to work that hard to just maintain. A level, that I think is professional. So I have to work really hard at practicing and playing. And like I said, I know people that don't ever practice and they can pick up a guitar and smoke me, but it's like, it's all relative, man. It doesn't matter how you get there, right? You just get there.
Well, it's very similar to your health too. It's like folks will work out real hard for 2 years and lose it all in 3 months. It's like, this is a vehicle that needs daily maintenance.
Yeah.
And from the things you put in your tank to the way you buff out the tires, when you got some issues, like it's a bitch to be back there tomorrow doing the thing that you don't want to do, but it's the only way.
Yeah.
That kind of discipline is what keeps people going, man.
Keeps going and developing good habits early,
Yeah.
I've up and down with trying to stay healthy my whole life. Of course, drinking doesn't help, but you only have one body. You got to treat it, the best you can, and I'm pretty healthy for my age, but I know a lot of people that suffer with a lot of diseases and have passed on, and it sucks. My only brother died at 40 of a sudden heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you just don't know, man. So it's crazy.
Yeah,
you got to take care of your temple.
You ever have any issues with your hands over the years?
I've been getting this. I get this tingling thing. Nothing major. It usually goes away. It's like in the morning or sometimes if I'm riding. Not really when I'm playing. It's funny, though, because I was just talking to somebody recently about this. Last night, talking to my buddy Tim Sylvester, who teaches with me, T-Slide.
T-Slide was one of my best mentors, man. He took real good care of me as a kid.
He's so cool, and he teaches at my spot. And Scotty Bratcher left his rig, and I hadn't plugged it in, so I was waiting on a student, like, let's plug this motherfucker up and get loud. And it sounded great, but we were just playing some licks, and I was like, man, I said, dude, I can't play like I used to. Like I can't play fast. And not that I was fast to begin with, but like I've lost that. A lot of just that natural thing I had. I think it just over the years just kind of caught up. I'm not like playing like at a snail's pace, but like I can't play fluidly fast like I'd like to. Like I used to be able to pull off some Randy Rhoads licks and stuff like that. Now it's kind of like, ugh, what am I doing here?
Well, when you look at like Les Paul in his last couple years playing up there, it's like, you gotta learn to speak within the means that your body's gonna allow. Like, I have some serious fears about carpal tunnel and whatever would happen to my hands, and like I'm trying to accept that one day I'm not gonna be able to play. You're gonna lose.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Well, like all things in life, you have to learn to let go of them before reality meets you there.
Right. You got a way to go, buddy. You're all right.
Yeah. But being able to take care of it in the meantime and appreciate it for what it is, and approach aging gracefully in that regard.
True. And the advice I give is stay in your lane, and that's kind of what I try and do. If you stay in your lane, you're okay. You don't have to be the best at anything. You can be part of a team and contribute, whether it's a band or whatever. And man, guitar playing, you're as good as it gets. I mean, you're playing, like I said, it's kind of beyond your years. Like you're soulful and tasty and just got great chops. I mean, you're such a good player.
Thanks, brother.
What are some of your influences?
Well, I think I had a really good teacher as a kid that we just ran scales all the time.
Who was your teacher?
His name was Jim Bowling.
Okay.
And I took lessons in House music.
Yep.
And he was a really wonderful guy, and he was a huge Beatles nut. So he was teaching me how to appreciate horn parts and play horn parts on the instrument, and then just running scales and things like that. And maybe it was, I'm sure you had this point in your life too, where you stop thinking about what you're doing and you just start doing, and that's when you finally gotten cohesive enough with the instrument where you do have your voice. But when it comes to like my heroes nowadays, like Prince is my one and only that I look at, and he plays one note at a time, and it fucking hits, and it's right. And then you listen to the end of Purple Rain, you're like, still can't do that, okay? But the rest of the time, he's just hitting on the one. He's so reserved with it.
I mean, he's maybe the most underrated guitar player amongst guitar players. I mean, his rhythm is like, who's better at rhythm than Prince?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
And who's better at choosing when and when not to?
Yeah.
Like, he has an album called Piano on a Microphone. It's his 1983 tour where I think he had just finished Purple Rain for like the monolithic tour that was. And he was going to go out there and almost like an homage to his father, he was just going to play keys.
Yeah.
And I can't believe the way he plays piano in addition to that. Can't believe the way he plays drums. And he's like the end-all, be-all of respect the song. And if you get visited by the song, if the muse is in your ear, try to flesh out as much as you can get from it. And then delegate that to people that are more adequately capable of pulling it off, you know?
Well, that's a good influence to have, man.
For sure.
And it definitely shows in your playing. I mean, like I said, you got so much soul and just play with a lot of feel, which to me is a gift, to be able to do that.
Yeah. It's a gift to have stuck it out long enough to get to a place where it does feel like better than speaking.
Right.
So
let me ask you, what do you think about, how would you rate your guitar playing? Like as a player, are you where you want to be? Do you want to get better? Do you practice? I mean, I know you're a songwriter, you're learning covers. What's your approach to staying on top of your game?
Well, I spend so much time on my acoustic gigs with a looper, so I just have this uninterrupted conversation with myself, and we all have the tendency to get redundant in the way that we phrase things. So that's my space to feel free, play wrong notes, just eat shit and do that. If I'm practicing anything at home, it's just dexterity, trying to make sure that I'm staying fresh and keeping up to the pace that I want to play at.
Right.
I've been playing a lot more slide because I'm trying to appreciate the notes between the notes a little bit more.
Yeah.
I had why am I spacing his name? Dudley Taft. Dudley Taft came on the show a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I missed that.
Dude, and he was talking about...
He's so badass.
He's such a bad motherfucker.
I know.
He was talking about his most recent album. People were saying it sounded like he was playing slide. He's like, that's just my bends, man. I'm like, that's crazy to think that there's so much more in someone's bends that I'm not getting out right now. Because I just haven't explored that territory. So I see myself as just a step above cowboy chords of I've learned enough lead lines.
You're crazy, by the way.
But we all despise our own playing in that, if you're being honest with yourself. But there's enough time in my life to be a lead guitar player, and there's enough horn players in my life that I'm always hearing very interesting, weird phrases. It's like, okay, I'm gonna figure that little bag out. And then just run it. Like I'm a very slow moving learner. So just getting things under the hands that they feel second nature, and that is the only way that I can go with it.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. It's cool to hear that, like, how you practice. And, to add to your point, I think the best, and I tell my students this too, there's no better practice tool than a looper. There really isn't.
Yeah.
You can play it's just the best. I can't even express how I feel about a loop pedal. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, you never find a rhythm guitar player patient enough to sit there with you and let you keep running those things.
And layering and coming up with new ideas. It's insane. And not to interrupt, but you get paid to do that for a living,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's my main bag. People know me as a loop. When they see the band, they feel like I'm a little bit out of my element. And it's good cross training to have both. If I didn't have both, I'd feel a little unfulfilled.
Yeah, off the air, I want to talk to you sometime because your looping skills are pretty mad. Like when I watch you do your solo stuff, it's pretty badass.
And I attribute most of that to the looper itself. I got one of the boomerangs that has allowed me just a lot more space to do what I want. I love.
But you got it down, man.
Well, it's been in my life since I was 14, so I'm going on year 13 with it. And like one of my initial heroes, Tommy Sims, who's one of my best friends. He's a guy that I grew up playing with in Hilton Head. He got me into it. I got my looper. I watched this guy will play like a rendition of Freebird where he has the Roland MIDI setup and he's using a xylophone sound. He's ripping licks verbatim, but he's just having his own dicking around fun.
Yeah.
And I was always very inspired by that. But especially when it comes to, there's not a lot of harmony work to be done as single note players. And I watch some guys that are great with playing outside like the Hendrix double stops and things like that. It's a great way to be able to analyze how lines relate to other lines within the key and how you can reconstruct the context of that note with the different layers of your harmonies. And
yeah, it's crazy. There's so many things you don't normally hear when you just kind of pass through things, but when you hear the loop in it and you play it back, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and also in the world now where self-recording is so available, now when I sit in front of my computer and I'm working on a record and I have to hit solo and I have to blend these two, and it's like I don't like the way the amp sounds because you're being too chunky. You're hitting too much of your E and A string. Little things like that where I look at my hero Prince. He's going straight into that fucking board and there's no amp involved and it sounds right. So what am I doing wrong here, man?
Again, I just had the same conversation last night. I was talking to T-Sly, and he was talking about some guitar player. I think Keith Cheatham used to play with him, but there's an old school group of guys, especially like the funk guys and R&B. Man, they would plug into the crappiest amp or whatever, or direct, and make it sound good. And it's like a lot of these guys are out there just gear. It's like, man, it's cool. I'm not a gearhead, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-gear. I'm just not a gearhead. I like what I have. But man, if you're really good, you can just plug in and play. I'm not saying I'm that guy, but like the greats can do that. They just plug in whatever.
Yeah.
Like I don't, just like when Guthrie came down, he's like, I'm like, what do you need, man? I can get you up, He's like, I don't know, just get me a Fender and I'll be fine. It's like, what kind of Fender you want? He's like, dude, I don't care. It's like, yeah, that's right. You're that good.
Yeah, but you are trying to reverse engineer it. Like we're all trying to model after somebody else's sounds.
True.
Like,
yeah.
I'm a big believer that guitars have songs, and I'm like, this is gonna write you this, and this is gonna give you that. And some of these really brutally honest, shittier pieces of gear are the ones that lead you to tonalities that you wouldn't have thought of.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Jack White's a great example of that,
absolutely.
Where he prefers plastic over wood, and it's like, and he's great with it.
Yep. It's crazy. Like sometimes a not so desirable tone or effect will come up with. And that's the beauty of writing music, man. It's art. You discover all kinds of cool things and different brushes and paints and different colors, and create this beautiful piece.
Yeah. When you're taking on a new student, of any age, do you say acoustic first, or you put them on whatever they're comfortable with?
Whatever they want. I mean, it depends on the student. You don't want a 7 or 8 year old kid in there with a guitar that's bigger than him. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, I've gone to I typically say electric because usually a student's going to get electric anyway at some point if they stick with it. Mm-hmm. It's a little more forgiving, but just as long as the instrument fits them and stays in tune, then I'm cool with whatever.
Yeah. One of the most impactful things for me as a kid was just finding a routine time to play the instrument where you had to learn material that you didn't want to. Like, I was playing music in the Catholic Church, which is the worst book of tunes that you could ever be given.
It sucks.
But I did learn in that your D chord is not just a D chord. It could have an F sharp on the bottom, or you could have an A on the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, all the ways that changes the shape of it.
Absolutely.
And if you're just taking lessons and you're learning what you want to learn, then learning what you want to learn is the homework. But if you're taking lessons and you have a gig you fucking hate, and the stuff you want to learn is your free time, and the stuff you don't want to learn is the homework, So it's like you almost need to force yourself into corners of things you don't want to do so you can hold sacred the stuff that you're really pursuing.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, as far as my teaching, that's what I do. It's like people, well, what do you teach? It's like, whatever you want to learn. I mean, everybody's different. That's why I think I'm a good, you know, I'm not a great player, but I'm a pretty good teacher. I think I know a lot of great players that aren't good teachers. You know, I've had so many of my friends that I played in bands with over the years and friends of friends, and they're great guitar players, and I teach their kids because they don't know how to teach them, or they don't have the patience. But my thing is to get you interested, you know. So if you're a beginner, I'm not going to sit there and go, okay, we're going to play scales every day and we're going to read out of a book. You're going to fucking split, man. You know, I've done that before. I've been forced to do that before, and I won't do it ever again. That's why I'm kind of doing my own environments. Like, you're going to get inspired by this instrument every time you pick it up, whether you're playing a Taylor Swift song or a Sepultura song or I don't know where that came from.
Polyphia or something like that.
Whatever you're interested in, man. Even if it's something you can't play, we're going to play the bass notes, and you're going to, like, I've had some students that come in, they want to learn this heavy shit. It's like, fuck, dude, you got to have a guitar turned down. But we'll find the notes, and they couldn't play it anyway.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll make them have fun. We'll just do the single note and play whole notes. It's like, and that's inspiring to go home and do that. And to see their faces light up, it's like, okay, well, I must have done something because they're smiling.
Yeah, and to get to play along to the records that you love, like there's a threshold there, but getting someone over that hump,
it's huge.
It's the most influential.
It's the most important. And then, you know, if somebody sticks around long enough, of course I'm going to try and get them involved in like learning how the instrument works. You know, I'm self-taught for the most part, and I didn't really learn I didn't know any theory. I only did because I got a job teaching, and I didn't even know what to do. I didn't even know the names of half the chords, and I've been playing around the country and done albums and stuff. I'm like, I didn't know what a triad was.
Yeah,
I was playing this shit, but I didn't know. I didn't know what a mode was. So I'm still learning. You know, I know a pretty good amount of theory now because I'm pretty fascinated by it. But you know, not like at a jazz level or anything like that. But
it's a great additional level to take it to. Like if you just played from the heart growing up, and now you get to learn the what and why. Like I see a lot of the academic musicians in town get burned by over-learning it to some extent and only having to quantify it. But if you do it at your own pace, if you have a teacher that understands you, these unlock the keys to the kingdom. It's like you don't need to know the mode just to know the mode. You need to know the mode because it has a feeling associated with it. So when you want to evoke that feeling, you have it under your hands.
It's true. Yeah.
You know, these half steps and then like a major third step, like something weird to go on there.
Right.
That's how you're going to get that Phrygian sound. You know, something fucked up like that where I don't know if you're ever going to use this, but once you associate with the feeling of your own being, now we can get you free to speak through it.
It was cool. I keep dropping names, but I was watching this video, the new video Guthrie put out last night, and it was I can't remember who it was. It was a piece he was playing on acoustic, and I went and looked it up. He's like, you should check these guys out, and I did. And I started playing this piece in the key and figuring out the melody, and it was beautiful. And I can't wait to go home and practice it, to be honest with you. And I'm like, I was playing out a G, but I was like, well, this isn't G major. I was like, oh, it's Lydian. So it was a Lydian thing. I was like, but there was a point in time in life I would have never known that. It's like, oh, this is a fucking great example. I can teach somebody how to play this now and go, here's a cool melody with Lydian in it. So it's just cool to know that stuff. You know?
Totally. When I think in the pursuit of learning a lot of material quickly, when you have a rationale behind it, like I said, Em's a nurse. When I ask her a medical question, I watch her compute through this whole thing. She has a set process and structure for how she understands it.
Right.
If you have that in the music, you can understand why things made you feel a certain way. And even if you can't replicate it perfectly, your appreciation for it has now gone from baseline lever to the bottom of this
So
bit.
true, yeah.
Yeah.
With anything, right? From medicine to anything, yeah.
Medicine to bikes as well. It's like, I'd imagine when you get on a motorcycle, you're very aware of, is everything going well or is something off with this thing, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not a mechanical guy, so I do a lot of praying when I get in my car, 2 or 4 wheels, there's air in the tires, fuck it looks good, let's go. But yeah, I'm not one of those guys that can get down and go, oh, let's check the solenoid and make sure the X factor is hooked into the, whatever. I don't even know the terminology to fake it. But
well, brother, as we conclude this, is there anything that you'd like to put out there for folks that are considering the music salon for any number of instruments or the clinics for pursuing the betterment of their playing?
Well, I can't imagine anybody other than my girlfriend or mother watching this long because of me, not you.
Oh, we're going to clip it up. They don't need to watch the whole thing to get to this bit. You know?
Okay. So the music salon, I wanted to create this place that was like unlike any other place in the city, and I think it is. And it's not to knock anybody or anything, because there's some of the greatest places you can learn. I just wanted to create a place when you come in, you go, wow, this is really cool. This is neat, and we've created that. It's a cool spot. It looks more like a boutique art studio, and I've handpicked what I consider some of the best players and teachers in town. I mean, some of my guys play in touring bands, or they're touring the world literally and coming back and teaching. So we have great teachers. We have a great staff. It's a knowledgeable, friendly environment. And
what all instruments are available for lessons?
We teach everything. We teach guitar, bass, ukulele, drums, vocals, keys, horns. Just about everything.
Yeah. Well, a one-stop shop for appreciating music on a level that is only available in places where people have really sunk the time into, brother. And
yeah.
I think
one more thing, we also offer. I started doing music rentals. So, like, if your kid goes to school and wants to rent a violin or a saxophone, you can rent it to the music salon as well.
That's excellent. Yeah. To be able to find access to the instruments while also not having to bite down on a $3,000 investment for a Barry sax because your kid wants to figure it out.
Yeah. And then the final thing I'll say is my goal too is to just create this coolest spot where people can come see clinics. And I've got so many amazing things planned with some cool people helping me out. But it's going to be really the most unique place in Cincinnati for learning and for all ages and styles. That's all I can tell you. Just come check it out and see what you think.
Yeah, in beautiful Madeira, Ohio, brother. You are a person of such high character that I have such admiration for what you do. And what you're building there is a cornerstone for people to grow the listener populace that makes a difference in our scene, to be the players that participate in that scene, and also just to love something that you and I love at the highest level, man. Yeah. So thank you.
I appreciate it, and my respect for you is here, man. So
cool. Well, much love, brother.
Love you, brother.
Peace, everybody.